Are you thinking of taking an adult gap year but not sure where to start? Well, in this video, I'll help you plan your gap year step by step. Hey there! If you're new here, my name is Seppi, rhymes with Peppy, from SheHitRefresh.com. And I help women age 30 and over break free from a life of routine to travel the world long term and move abroad. Back in 2015, I left Texas for Spain and have been living here ever since. I was 35 years old and so grateful to my younger self that I made that leap. If you're here, you're probably thinking of doing something similar, so I want to thank you so much first for stopping by my channel. On this channel, I talk about moving abroad specifically for US citizens. And since you're here, I'd love to invite you to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so that you don't miss out on any future Move Abroad content. So let's talk about taking that adult gap year. If you're not really sure what a gap year really is, think of it as a sabbatical. It really is an opportunity to take a period of time off to explore your interests and or travel the world. Taking a gap year is just a great way to take a step back from your busy life and focus your time and energy on those things that you've always wanted to do. You know, as we get older, I feel like we get so caught up in this checklist of things that we need to do. And I feel even more so in the US where there are all of these societal pressures and expectations of success. You know, once you start working after college, you kind of never really stop because you're hitting one milestone to the next and you can't get off that hamster wheel. But taking a gap year allows you to hop off that hamster wheel and just experience life as maybe you never have before, or at least since you were a child. Now, I'm sure a gap year is sounding pretty awesome to you, but you may be wondering if it's the right fit for you. So reasons to take a gap year can be really personal, and they may be driven by what's going on in your life. So I can't really tell you if you should or shouldn't take a gap year, but you should really take one. If you're wondering if you should take a gap year, I'm just gonna give you some reasons why you might consider one. And that is that you feel burnt out, especially from these last years of recovering from the pandemic. You may be feeling not so much like yourself and you need a break. This could be a great time to do that. Or you feel unclear about what you want in life. You need time to focus on you. You have the time and money to stop working for a while and start exploring. You've never taken a break. So as I mentioned before, some of us have just been on that hamster wheel forever, from high school to college to adulting, and have never stopped. So maybe this is your chance to give yourself a little break and see what life is like without working. And last but not least, maybe you just feel this pull and this yearning to learn and grow in ways that aren't connected to your job. There's really no right or wrong reason for taking a gap year, but once you start planning, you may feel like it's a bit overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. So I want to give you some tips to help you plan out your adult gap year step by step. So step number one is to think about, what do you want to do during your gap year? So this is actually the fun part. Get out a piece of paper and a pen and start writing down all the things that you've ever wanted to do in life. I mean, do you want to hit as many countries as you can on your bucket list? Maybe you just want to sit on a beach somewhere and write that memoir that you've always dreamt of. Or maybe you just want to take some time to learn a new language or pick up a new skill. Only you can answer this question of what you want to do. Now, if you need some help, I'll drop a link below that'll give you some ideas of what you can do during your gap year. Number two is that you're going to have to think about how long you want your gap year to be. As the name implies, typically people take a year off. But you know what? You are in the driver's seat of this plan, so you get to pick how much time you want to take. It can be a few months, a year, or even longer. It's really up to you and maybe what responsibilities and restrictions you may have. Maybe your work is allowing you to take a year off and will hold your position for you. So that makes it pretty easy to know how long you want your gap year to be. But maybe there are other things that you need to consider, such as your mortgage, pets, or other commitments that can influence the time of your gap year. But it's really important to remember that nothing is set in stone. So once you take off on your gap year, you can totally change the timeline. If you had planned for a year but feel like you only want to do 3 or 6 months, you can do that. Or maybe you've been on the road for 6 months and you feel like you want to do a year longer. Anything is possible because you are in charge. Number 3 is that you have to think about how much money you can save. No matter how you look at it, your gap year is gonna cost money. So to make your gap year as stress-free as possible, you should start saving now and save as much as you can. I always tell people to save double what they think that they need for a move abroad, and in this case, for a gap year. Just some tips and tricks to help you save. Why not create a separate savings account just for your gap year, and you can start putting money in there on a weekly or monthly basis. You can also try to cut corners with your expenses, so the typical of eating out less, going out for drinks less, and also canceling those useless subscriptions or subscriptions that you just don't use that often. You'd be surprised how much you can really save by just tweaking a few things. If you're worried about having enough money for your gap year, do some research on budget-friendly countries because you can actually live on a lot less abroad than what you do now in the US. Number 4 is that you gotta decide where you wanna go. So you have a broad idea of how you wanna spend your gap year because we just made that list of all the things that you've ever wanted to do in life. Take a look at that, see if anything jumps out, and if anything is location specific. If you have a lot of countries on that list, we'll see which ones are the most important that you really want to try to tackle during this gap year. And if they're in different regions of the world, just try to find a way to tie them together. Now, you do want to be practical, so you're going to have to ask yourself if you can realistically visit all those places during the time that you have. Think about if you just want to visit 1 or 2 countries, if you want to focus on one continent, or if you just want to travel the whole entire world. Now, if you are planning to travel the whole world, just make sure you understand the logistics of getting from one place to the other because all of that travel can really eat up your time and money. All right, number 5 is to start budgeting for your gap year. We've talked about saving money, but now let's look at how much it's actually going to cost you to put this dream adult gap year into motion. So you're going to have to account for everything you can think of, what it's going to cost you, and give yourself a cushion so you do not have to cut your trip short. The main areas that take up the most money are going to be accommodation, food, and transportation. Of course, there's going to be other things to think about like necessary paperwork, if you're going to need any visas, as well as travel health insurance. So back to accommodation, that's going to be one of your biggest expenses. So you really want to look at ways to cut down on that cost. So I highly encourage you to look at hostels and also co-living spaces that may be set up for travelers who want to save money. Another thing to look into is house swapping and even pet sitting. When you're booking accommodations, also check and see if there's a kitchen you can use because that's going to help you keep the cost down, or if you're going to have to eat out a lot. And also think about transportation where you're staying because you're definitely going to want to stay somewhere that is walking friendly or that you can take public transportation. That will help you so you don't have to take so many taxis or ride shares. The next step is number 6, and that is figuring out your paperwork. So the last thing you want to do is have to delay your trip or get stuck in a country because you don't have the right paperwork. It's not only a major headache, but it can also put you in an unsafe or an expensive situation if you're not careful. So before you go anywhere, you're going to want to check to see if you need a visa to be there. Also, before you leave, you want to make sure that your passport is up to date. Make sure it's not going to expire anytime during your trip. And if so, then just get it replaced as soon as possible. Other paperwork to consider is going to be health insurance. So you're going to want to check with your health insurance provider to find out if you're going to be covered under your existing plan when you're abroad. 9 times out of 10, you aren't, so you're going to have to find travel health insurance that's going to cover you in all the countries that you're going to. I really like the company Safety Wing for travelers and digital nomads, and I'll drop their link below if you're interested in learning about their travel health insurance. Another thing to research is to see if you need any immunizations or vaccines before you go. All right, we are flying through these. Number 7 now is to start booking your trip. It's becoming real. So depending on your personality and where you're going, you don't have to book everything in advance. What a lot of people do is they just have their departing flight and accommodations in their first few countries or months, and then they just leave everything else open so that they can go with the flow. This is your gap year, so you don't want to feel overscheduled. It is really a great idea to leave some open space so that you can make decisions on the fly, especially when you're traveling. You know that you may want to stay somewhere a little longer, or maybe you want to leave earlier. Not having everything booked out will allow you that extra flexibility. Of course, if there are specific places that you want to go that tend to sell out in advance, like Machu Picchu or the Alhambra, definitely book those in advance so you don't miss your one shot. All right, now that you've booked everything, number 8 is to think about out what to do with your stuff. This is going to be different for everybody because some people may choose to keep their apartment or home while they travel, while others may be renting, subletting, or even selling their homes before they leave. If you are going to be renting out or leaving your home, you're going to have to declutter and downsize before you go. But don't worry, it actually can be a very cathartic process. You definitely can't take everything with you, and you don't really want to. So if you need help on decluttering and downsizing, I have another video that you can check out to get some tips. Number 9 is resigning from your job. So another big decision to make before your gap year is thinking about what are you going to do with your job. In most cases, you're probably going to be quitting for one reason or another. But maybe you want to come back to your job, and maybe you're lucky enough to have an employer who's willing to let you go on a gap year and hold your position for you. That's a great position to be in. But if that's not you and you know you want to quit, even if you want to quit, the process can be very stressful. But there is a way to leave your job on good terms so that you can leave the door open for future opportunities, or at least to get a positive reference in the future. If you need some help on quitting your job gracefully, check my link below on a blog post that I have that's all about this. All right, we are almost to the end here. Number 10 is packing for your gap year. With the date set and your flight booked, it is time to pack. If you know that you're an overpacker, now is the time to start focusing on those essentials. A good place to start is to think about the weather that you're going to encounter and all the places that you're going to. Of course, have some flexibility there and just stick to the basics. What I like to do is lay everything out that I want to take. And then I can just start weeding things out, right? You want to make sure in what you're taking, you have a lot of things that can match together so that you can make a lot of outfits from a small amount of clothing. The less you can take, the better. If you can fit everything in your travels on a backpack or a backpack and a rolly without having a check-on, that is going to be the best way to travel. And backpacks really are the way to go. If you can avoid taking a suitcase with wheels, you will be so much better off because there are tons of places around the world that are not luggage wheel friendly. Just think about cobblestone streets, unpaved roads, stairs, water, etc. If you need suggestions on how to pack, I got a video for you there as well. All right, and my last tip here to plan for your adult gap year is number 11, and that is to plan for your return. I know it's kind of crazy to think about your return before you've even left, but a return from your gap year to your old life can be pretty jarring. A gap year is going to change you, no doubt. So there's going to be a lot of things that you just can't account for just yet, including life-changing experiences or realizations that you're going to have along the way. But you can definitely create a loose plan to help you come back to your old life. Maybe your plan is to go back to your same job when you get back, or maybe it's to really just shake things up and start a whole new career altogether. Hey, you might even decide that you want to stay abroad and give living abroad a try. If so, I have tons of resources for you down below. And that's it. Gap years are not just for college students. They can actually be helpful and life-changing at any stage in life. I hope you found my tips here for planning your own gap year helpful. And if you're looking for more resources, please be sure to check out my digital book, I'm Outta Here, An American's Ultimate Visa Guide to Living in Europe, where I go over the 18 easiest countries to move to in Europe based on viable visa options. You'll find over 50 viable visa options in there. If you need more personalized help, I would love to work with you, so be sure to check out my new Move Abroad Bootcamp, where we can work together in a group capacity. And if you need one-on-one help, I also offer one-on-one consulting. If you're a woman age 30 and over, please join my free Facebook group, She Hit Refresh, where you'll meet thousands of other like-minded women who also want to move abroad. You'll also find tons of inspiration, resources, and support to help you with your own move. And if you enjoyed this video, please give me a like, turn on notifications, and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future Move Abroad content.